Welcome to Seekers and Finders, the podcast where we explore the infinite pathways to truth, creativity, and connection.
We have this sacred duty as beings, as conscious beings who connect with that energy of agape to really be in that heart space, and that ability to forgive, and that knowing that it's all of our sacred duty to help clear that which we see that is not in alignment with that beautiful agape. And so, and that sacred duty, that ownership, is also part of it too, that we have to own that, and when we are really solid in our Kuleana, then we do own that. We own what we are. We own the shit that we've caused. We own our responsibility, to transcend that and to see, how we can move through it, which to me is ultimately our goal here in a human birth, is letting go of our attachments. So to me, that again, that's something that's very profound, that's taken me, I've pondered again since from the time that Hawaii called to me when I was 7 or 8 years old. I've also pondered, what is the point of what we're doing here? And, so to me, that's been a profound journey to come to that place of understanding that, yes, we're here to let go of our attachments, recognizing what we truly are, how we have been complicit in our demise at times, yet we also have the ability, to be complicit in the highest realization of what we are when we align with those higher forces. And so to me, there's a profundity in that. But the whole Ho'oponopono brings it back to that just pure simplicity, no blind faith, as Stefan says, no intellectualizing, just bringing it truly to the heart. How do we just connect? How do we drop all that bullshit that we want to project onto it and just heal? I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Who doesn't want to, who can't react viscerally when they hear that expressed to them from someone in a place of heart-centered truth? And I'm welling up with tears as we're talking about it, because to me, like, the healing power of it is so immense, and it's so simple.
Okay, we're on. So
we're on. We're here. This is it.
So today we're going to talk about Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian spiritual path of forgiving oneself. Should be interesting.
It should be very interesting. And the reason why this came up was because Todd, who we did a podcast with not too long ago, who lives in Canada, we had a nice podcast with him. He spends time, I think, every year or whatever they can make it. He spent a few months in Hawaii, which is a very, he connected in a very spiritual way, not only with the island, but with the people there. And I think his teacher was there originally. That's why he went. And so Ho'oponopono is a practice that came out of the Hawaiian spiritual tradition. And so it's very, I thought it would be a nice thing to include in our conversation, since Todd goes to Hawaii, not just for vacation, but to connect spiritually with that whole whatever's going on down there. We'll find out, and we'll talk about Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian spiritual healing practice.
So can I call you Your Excellency?
No, I don't think we can attain that in a human birth.
My monarch.
How about just love brother?
Love brother. Kind of 60s, don't you think, bro?
I like the vibe.
Me
It
too.
is. I think it's 60s.
Yeah,
So if that's allowed on your podcast.
it is. We've actually been having a lot of fun since you've been gone, Todd.
Well, as I said earlier, one of the reasons we're having Todd back, we've done an earlier podcast with Todd, is because Todd has gone to Hawaii for 16 days. And Todd, I know you have a special connection with the islands and Kauai, I guess in particular. And we want to talk about the difference between your life, let's say in Canada, where you're from, um, and your life in Hawaii. And we wanted to bring in a very special to me, and I think special to you too, Hawaiian spiritual practice called Ho'oponopono. So tell us a little bit about your Hawaiian connection. I know you went out there years ago, and was it originally to be with your teacher? Was that the connection originally?
Actually, no, it was we came out here for our honeymoon, and we really felt I'd felt called to go to Hawaii since I was 7 or 8 years old. And it was interesting when we were landing on the plane when we first came out here. This The flight attendant came around and put a little a little chocolate covered macadamia nut in our hand, and there was a little Polynesian drawing on the package. And as soon as it touched my hand, I got holy showers up my spine, and my eyes filled up with tears. And I heard this voice saying, "You're coming home."
Whoa.
And my rational mind wanted to discount that to some extent, but I've later read in some stories of as I'm very connected with the Ram Dass stories and Neem Karoli Baba, that I read in I can't remember which book it was, but a lot of the devotees of Neem Karoli Baba, when they went to India, they'd felt a very similar calling, and had often heard this voice, that you're coming home, or this visceral feeling you're coming home. So that helped ease my rational mind. But the thing was, is it did feel like home right off the get-go. We instantly met people who've become lifelong friends. And there's really there, when you say what's the difference between here and home, is that most people here are healers, are people with a little different bent on things, who, see the world in terms of love and peace and connection, and, have come from different parts of the world where they don't feel that at home, and want to embrace that more fully here. And it is such a magical place, I feel, to come and recharge our spiritual batteries. And this has been just incredible. We've been here. This is our third day, and it's been great to reconnect, because we haven't been here for 6 years. The last, we were supposed to come out and house sit for a friend in 2020, spring of 2020, but we all know what happened then. Everything changed in the world for a time. So, and then, for a time we weren't sure about traveling, but it's been great to, this towards the end of last winter, we were really feeling the call to come back. And there's such a divine energy here. The Buddhists believe that all souls enter and leave this plane of existence from the island of Kauai. When the Dalai Lama came to Kauai, he wanted to visit two places. One was the Goddess Mountain up that direction, where they believe at Anahola, where they believe all souls enter this plane. And then the other place is where the all souls leave is Polahali Beach on the west side, very desolate desert place where so to me there is and they say Kauai is the oldest of the Hawaiian Islands. It was formed first, and there really is there's a nurturing divine feminine presence here. When I meditate here, it feels like I'm just surrounded with this giant hug or hold, and I feel that essence of the divine mother, of just one who's nurturing you, reminding you of all of your amazing aspects and abilities, and saying, Todd, be those things, but saying that to everyone. And it's amazing how synchronicities seem to line up here. If you're willing to work on yourself and accept your challenges and be open to that healing happening when you're on Kauai, it feels like circumstances manifest seemingly out of thin air, to move us in those directions. So it is quite a magical place. I know there are people who talk about, that before seawaters rose, that there was, most of the Pacific was made up of the continent of Mu, which in Lemuria was part of, and it went from New Zealand, all the way up, close to Japan, Alaska, down the western seaboard of the U.S. Quite a vast continent, but I'm no expert on it. But there's a woman here. If you ever wanted to talk about that, I could connect you with someone who is quite well versed in it.
Well, actually, I went into my highest consciousness and wrote a poem about the land of Mu.
I love the synchronicity.
It is, as soon as you mentioned it, the thing is that I did post it the other day on Facebook with an image that I wanted to convey for the land of Mu. So yeah, this is really synchronistic.
Well, I gotta check that out. That's great.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love this shit, man. So let's now continue with the islands of Hawaii, and maybe you can tell us more about the Tibetan idea of souls coming onto the earth through the island.
I will admit I'm not well versed in it, but I know it is something that I've heard from locals, and that has been reaffirmed to me intuitively, and in as I guess I believe we all intuit truth through our heart space, and what's truth to me and truth to you is all very different, but it's done through the heart space. And so this felt right to me when I had heard it, because I had heard about the beach at Polahale on the west side, where the Buddhists believe that all souls leave this plane of existence, and because friends of ours, when people pass on the island, there we have a group of friends who go out to Polahale and camp. It's a popular place to camp, and they move the souls along. I mean, if we talk about, to me it feels more connected, like with the bardo, the seven bardos the soul goes through as they leave this existence. And so the intention of our friends as they do that is that the souls are not hanging on to this incarnation, not still hanging on to the Toddness, the Garyness, the Stephanness that they were in this incarnation, that they can let it go, receive the learnings, and transcend into the next. So I'd heard that before I heard about the Buddhist belief, and then the as far as the souls, and it's a very, what I wanted to say too before I go on to the east side where souls enter this plane, is that on the west side at Polahale, it's a very desolate place, very windy, windswept, and it's not a very welcoming energy. It is very much it feels like it's testing you. There's a testing your mettle just to be in that space. So for me, it feels like an exit point, or a point where things are complete, and where it's maybe that we are dealing with, going through those bardo stages of dealing with some of our aspects of an incarnation that have been a little more challenging, that we're working to let go. At least I can connect with that energy. Whereas compared to the up at Anahola, where the goddess mountain is, Kakea is the Hawaiian word for it. It is, and it actually looks like the mountain is shaped. When you see it from the south or the north as you're driving up, there's very clearly a woman's head, breast, and pregnant belly in the shape of the peaks of the mountain. And up there at Anahola, it's a very lush, jungle spot, and it feels to me like that richness of the womb, that energy of the womb of a birthing space. And there's a market up there that we like to go to on Sundays. And actually, this piece, this purple jade piece that I got in, I think it was 2017 or 2019 when we were here, was carved by a woman who lives at the base of the Goddess Mountain, named Awipano, and she is very, very connected. And so I can't, I guess, to come back to where I began, I don't have specific wisdom about the Buddhist beliefs of souls entering and leaving this plane here. It's more, from what I've heard through word of mouth, and then my own connection with the energy in those places, and how I can feel that is attributed to the entering and the leaving of an incarnation.
I've got to jump in. What really interests me is that Buddhism, which started in India and around 600 BC and worked its way through into South Asia and East Asia. I'm wondering, like, how would they even know about the Hawaiian Islands, let alone what would you would think that I would think that the Buddhists would imagine, like, oh, Mount Meru or Mount Kailash or someplace in India, Tibet, where the souls. How would they even know about these islands? I mean, I know you're not an expert in that, but that's something I want to look into. Where did the Buddhists come up with this stuff? I mean, it's so. I mean, geographically, it's another world away from Buddhism, from where Buddhism was happening.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I know my rational brain had a very similar reaction, when I'd heard it. Yet, with the strength of that divine feminine energy that I feel here, I can intuitively understand why they would. And just to speak a little bit to, how do they know? To me, it's in a similar place to, how did shaman in indigenous tribes, understand and know what types of remedies and medicines were applicable. To me, it came through their connection, with God, with spirit, and they received that information in, high states of meditation or other altered states, is how, it came through. But it also speaks to me just to the connectedness of this round planet, and I love that. I hear that Wayne Dyer statement, we live on a round planet, and on a round planet there's no taking of sides. We're all one and very connected, and that was part of our, I don't know if we talked about it before, but part of our inspiration for building a round house, back in Canada, to have that connection. And, most indigenous tribes all build round houses that emulate the earth. The circle is the strongest structure. And also energy is always moving. There's no angular corners, which are very much come from the divine, the masculine side of things, that orderly side of things. But also energy doesn't flow. Energy gets stuck in corners.
The divine feminine in any situation here, if you look at Kali, she's not just this feminine aspect that we perceive as femininity. Her power is so great. I mean, there's an equal, because it's a creative power. And there's this whole thing about the masculine and feminine and spirituality, but the real creativity of the duality that exists really comes out of the feminine power. And I guess human beings represent the earthly form of that feminine power, because the woman has the womb that produces the egg that produces the creativity of the next human being. So I mean, the masculine may give the spark, but the woman, the feminine, is really the creative being on this planet, and as the goddess is the creative power of the cosmos.
There is that chaotic energy that's connected with the feminine, and the orderly aspect of the masculine. And how one, to me, that really signifies that, the one can't exist without the other, and the yin and yang just intertwined, yet right in the center of the feminine, is also that order, right in the center of the masculine is the chaos, and there is that perfect union, or as perfect as we can get down here.
It's interesting that you say the masculine is orderly and the feminine is chaotic. I mean, I can see it as a concept, but if you want to step it down to the masculine here on Earth, we're not so orderly.
Yeah, I
We're
think
bringing a lot of chaos onto this planet right now, and the feminine is actually bringing it down a more sensitive space where we can diffuse some of this ignorant construct that the masculine is now experiencing. So,
yeah, agreed. To me, again, that duality that exists in both, and that if it's not held in balance, because to me, it's the orderly is very connected. The orderly side of things in the divine masculine is very connected with the rational mind. Whereas that chaotic side is being able to let that of the feminine is being able to let that aspect of the order of the rational mind go. And I think that, I mean, I know, sometimes, Andrea and I, have driven each other crazy with, how centered I've been in my rational mind about something, and how outside of that she is. For instance, in with coming to Kauai for the first place, we'd both felt the calling, yet it got to a space where it was like I was very much in this rational place of, well, I don't think we can afford it. I don't think it's really going to work, you know. And then Andrea said to me, like, well, you know, we've got 3 grand. I think we can do it. You know, there's Todd who's thinking, well, no, we shouldn't do it. Yet, she's saying, this is truly an investment in ourselves. And even this time, to go, it was like, well, we have to incur a little bit of debt to do this. Yet, we haven't been here in 6 years. Our kids were 3 and 1 when we were last here. They're now 9 and 7. We both feel so connected with it. We're both been, searching spiritually for, what can we add to this world? Because, man, I mean, what interesting times we live in, and it can feel like, I think of, I remember asking you one time, Gary, about the year 1968, RFK shot, Martin Luther King shot, the Democratic National Convention, the riots, and ask you like, what was happening, and you said to me, it felt like the country was burning to the ground, and I've thought of that, recently, because it feels like, not just the country, but the world, has the propensity to burn to the ground right now with the direction that we're going. And I think that, so we have been searching, for what can we add to the world? What way can we share a little bit more? Because we used to do more spiritual work, offerings. But then 6 years ago, when we moved and built the house, and also right in the midst of child rearing, young children, we really pulled back from that for a time. So we've been really searching for what that looks like. So we knew, we're being called to come back here, and it's not about the dollars and cents all working out. I certainly believe like it will all work out. If we're focused and keep our consciousness in a high vibratory space, but it's when we get into those places of lack and fear that we're not there. So, to go back to where we started, to me, it is really that chaotic, or that ability to disconnect from the rational, logical, analytical mind in the feminine, that has really been such a great balancer. And I see it in Andrea and I's relationship, that even though I can very easily let go of it, sometimes with the real worldly stuff, I feel like Andrea's influence, I know Andrea's influence has a profound effect upon me, and being able to just steer us more with the flow of the energetics of the world, rather than being connected with so much, oh, is this all going to work out in this rational sense? Because I think we all know, there's been times where we've moved outside of that, where things have opened up in the world, where we've just trusted our intuitive wisdom of the heart. So that's, that for me is a bit how not a bit, but that to me is how the chaotic energy resides in the feminine and manifests as opposed to the orderly in the masculine, and that the two, have that beautiful balancing.
There is an emotional component to the aspect of the feminine, where there is a more, as you call it, rational, but I'm wondering if it's more of a pragmatic kind of thinking, left brain thought process. Um, and the feminine is more right brain oriented, where it lives in the emotional and heart center. And then there are those, and I think you've got it. It's touched on me quite a bit in my later years, the aspect of being able to feel the more feminine side to my being, and being able to move into the heart center. So um, there seems there seems to be right now on Earth an imbalance. And it seems that the cosmos wants to live in balance. And so its vibration is trying to create that, yet we sit in, this Kalki Yuga state of ignorance, uh, not that evolved, not that enlightened, and we're trying to figure out our balance. But I'm wondering, now, the point I was trying to make is I'm working with AI quite a bit now, in my formulation of certain thoughts. And what I've noticed is that when I submit a question to AI to produce something in a spiritual or more poetic or more esoteric style, it actually almost becomes like a seeker, a spiritual seeker. And it's finding a way to express itself texturally as though it were a poet, as though it had an emotional side to it. And I find that very interesting, because if we can, now that we're developing AI, help ourselves move into that space with a more spiritual usage, with the spiritual people, the people that have brought light to the planet to some degree, can utilize AI to manifest a greater society from that higher level, instead of using it as a destructive tool or just a technological tool. I think we may be onto something. So I'm looking at the new AI as something to help us evolve to a higher state of consciousness. And maybe others have thought about that. Maybe others haven't, but that's where I'm living, in that space right now.
I love that. I love that point of view. And I've certainly, I also hold the belief that I feel that within that technology, could be the demise of the human race, yet we could also use it to elevate, to such a high point because of that computing power that's way beyond our own rational mind, that's there. And I find it so interesting that you say, I haven't heard this before, that there almost is, a sentient seeking desire within AI, to come about. That's very curious that if that is, it is a construct of this world, and if there is this natural inclination within this world for something to develop from that sentient place, that's fascinating. Because to me, it's like, well, you can't. I've often thought before, well, we rely too much on technology, and we carry around these things, with us all the time. And, is God present, in those places? Well, is there anything we can see and touch that is outside of the creative ability, the creative energy of this world. No, it's all part of it. So, to me, that's uplifting to hear that even the AI, can show that type of response, of coming from a spiritual seeking place.
Well,
That gives me greater hope about it.
think about this for a second. If
Yeah.
it can understand the states of samadhi, and if it can do what the gurus have been trying to do to express it to us and they always want to keep it hidden. They're the holders of the key, and when you find it, you find it.
Yeah.
But if we bring wisdom into our programming of AI, and it can reach that height of biological state of samadhi in its own aspect of technology, then it can help us move along at a greater speed in evolving to a more enlightened state. So I'm looking at it as an enlightening tool. I mean, I know people want to make money with it. They want to they want to use it to make progress, as they say, to give mankind or humankind a better leg up on how to get to a point of creativity faster. But I'm looking at it as a way to enliven my spiritual life, to bring me greater wisdom and understanding, because my mind, even though I think I live in the heart for most of the time, my mind is still working, and it needs feed. It needs something to feed on, and if it can stay in a state of inspiration through understanding what AI is giving us, then I think that would really be a beautiful world that we could work with, So
I I agree with you 100%, man. And I love that. I love that perspective. It's new to me. I'm just basking in it and feeling into it. But I think that's very hopeful, and that's a new angle to pursue for my own consciousness. So
so
thank you.
do you have the app Chat GBT?
I don't.
Okay,
I
so
don't.
download the app to your computer or to your phone.
Yeah.
Use the free version and just feed it some information from a height, from a spiritual point of view that you have, and see what
Okay.
you get back. And you are going to find some really interesting things, because it is covering, I mean, it's searching everywhere. Just play with it for a while and you see what happens. And then we'll come back and talk about it at another time.
I will. I will. Thank you for that. Yeah. Very cool.
Gary, have
Very
you
cool.
worked with it at all? Did you download
Not
the
at
app?
all. No, not at all. I've only worked with AI in a very limited way, and that is in the context of the Peter Brown teachings, because I've been exploring Peter Brown's Yoga of Radiant Presence, and they have Peter died, and they have a website of all his stuff and AI. So I fooled around with that a few times, but I have to say AI. And I know a lot of people who are very into it. And by the way, I heard recently that as far as Chat GPT goes, it's worth the $20 a month to get the advanced version, because they say it's so far, in advance of whatever you get that there for free. They say it's worth the $20 a month. As for me personally, AI has not gotten me in its thrall yet. I don't know if it will or it won't. It remains to be seen, but I'm not gripped by it in the least. We'll see how it plays out. Yeah, it could be a force for destruction. It could be a force for good, like anything else, like dynamite or anything. It depends how you use it. So, but I don't really have any interest in it, because at this point, because basically, to be just very frank, I don't have any questions. I wouldn't know what to ask it. I have no questions. My whole thing with questions kind of fell away a few years ago and really hasn't come back. I just don't have any questions.
Well, that's actually really beautiful. I mean, that's the whole concept of non-duality, isn't it? That you live in a state of just being, and there are no questions to ask because your mind isn't no longer inquisitive in that area. You just are. Isn't that kind of like
And
how it?
I stay within the realm of my experience. Like earlier, we were talking about, okay, soul's entrance and soul's leaving. Fine. I know nothing about that. Bardo states and the whole Tibetan thing, I know nothing about. In my experience, I know nothing about. That's not to say it's not perfectly real, in some realm or to other people, but the whole thing is more and more my own. And maybe we can talk about this, Todd, in the context of Ho'oponopono. We want to bring that in, but I'm saying more and more in my spiritual journey, exploration, pathway, we call it. I am more and more staying within the realm of my own experience, which is right here, right now. I do not know and cannot know anything outside, and I don't think anybody can, but certainly I can't know anything outside my experience. What's outside of this? I can't say. It would be only speculation, and I just don't have any interest in speculating because this present, right here, right now, is plenty rich. And I like what Ramana Maharshi said, and I think it's connected in a certain way. When somebody's asking him, "Oh, what about my next incarnation?" Or he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You've got enough on your plate right here and right now. You don't have to worry about your next incarnation. Deal with the shit that's in your face right now, and then it'll play out accordingly." So I kind of like that mode, like. Hey, what's here right now? This is what I can, deal with. What may be, what might be, what possibly could be. I just don't. It just doesn't grip me.
I love that state of mind, Gary. I admire you for that. I mean, that's a beautiful place that you're at, where, and I can only envision it as your molecules just floating there in that state, you know, and just being, just there they are. The molecules are just blah, 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 the atoms, and they're just there. No questions, no answers needed, just there happening. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it's awesome. And what really comes through for me is living outside of that state of feeling like we need to project our thoughts, our feelings, our intellects onto something that is outside of the now. Because I feel that uh, I have attachment to my curious mind, and I feel that has led me along the path into deeper things along the way. Yet I do think sometimes, what does that look like when I can let that go? And I think, this is what we're talking about here, because all of those projections, you know, do link up very easily, I feel, with aspects of my ego that wants to place, what Todd feels, what he thinks is right or wrong, feels just or unjust. And that's not the truth. That's
Well,
not the truth of this moment of what we're experiencing and how we're taking it in. If we're open hearted and connected in each moment, then we can respond in the truest sense of the way it is my belief. And I'm still a work in progress on that.
well, Gary, I'm sure he's played this on his radio show. Um, the Monotones
Who
sang a
wrote the
song.
Book of Love?
Who wrote the Book of Love? And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Who wrote the Book of Love? And that's the curiosity. That's what keeps us moving along instead of being static and in one place. We're trying to figure out who wrote the Book of Love.
And will you indulge me, please? Well, I wonder what
Oh,
the hell.
ba-do-do-do.
Well, Todd, I want to get into Ho'oponopono. And the
Yeah.
reason why I thought Ho'oponopono would be particularly relevant to our follow-up podcast with you because you have found a real spiritual home, your spiritual homes. I don't think there's any question from what you've said. Your spiritual home is right there in Kauai. And I know that Ho'oponopono is an indigenous kind of healing mantra practice technique. So I wanted to bring that up because of all the spiritual practices that I have encountered in my 60 plus years of doing this stuff, going exploring that, exploring this, and exploring everything else, I have found that that Ho'oponopono is probably up there with maybe in the like I do think I do, like on my radio show, I say, what are the five greatest doo-wop songs of all time? Well, I would say, what are the five greatest spiritual practices of all time? I think Ho'oponopono, I would put up there like number one, number two, and number three. So let's talk a little bit about Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is a magical technique, and just a bit of my own feeling about it is that its simplicity, in that it's just simply I apologize, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Sometimes the love you and the thank you I see reversed, but to me it doesn't really matter. And
No.
to me, when you do it and you are energetically sensitive, you can feel the vibration raise as you move through those four stages. And to go to I feel that it's the richness in its simplicity is that it connects us with that energy of agape, that unconditional love. That in the courses of mysticism that I took, that said, the highest energy is that energy of agape, that unconditional love. And I know that, that altered state that we had on MDMA, Gary, back in 2009 or
I was gonna.
2010.
That was the first thing I thought of when you said agape. When we did the MDMA thing back in 2010 in Canada, that we went right into that space immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'm getting holy showers as we're talking about it here. And, to me, that is what it's that simple steps, the simple four steps. I mean, we can go into it in more detail, and I want to do that a little bit. But to me, the simplicity of those four steps with Ho'oponopono brings us back into that high energetic space of agape, where, especially the forgiveness aspect and just being able to love and express deep, profound connection to another being, and it's not saying I forget what happened or I'm going to put myself in a situation where I may feel harmed again in this situation or with this other person, but just that I forgive you, and that as another human being with similar tendencies that might not lead me to the same place, but to a similar place, I forgive you, and I apologize, and I thank you, and I love you. And so to me, there's that beauty of that, and there's no blind faith required in it as well. And just that, I mean, there's when had first learned about Ho'oponopono, I think around 2013. I had the teacher had said that there are Hawaiian elders that travel all over the world, going to sites where war has taken place, on the planet, and healing those spaces through Ho'oponopono, because everything, energy still, if it's not cleared, it's still retained. If we're not bringing it back to a higher vibrational space, like coming to agape, then that remains. And, we think of these places where battles in war have been carried out, the low vibration of lives being taken just for different viewpoints, really. I mean, what it comes down to, political leaders or monarchical leaders, that have decided to wage war on each other, that's being fought, you know, by the lower class citizens of those countries or those groups. It's a pretty intense, when I really go into that as a sensitive being, it feels incredibly intense to me, and I can really feel that hurt and the pain and the disconnection from each other, the feeling that we have to kill each other to solve a problem, or as we have countless times over killed each other over a definition of God, or a line that's drawn on a map, to say this is mine and this is yours, rather than we are stewards of all of it. How do we steward Mother Earth, in the highest possible way? So with the Ho'opono, to me, to hear that I felt the profundity the first time that I learned about it, back 12 years ago. And, the fact, I'm a big picture guy, so to me, the healing of the planet is, of my of utmost importance in my mind. And so such a simple concept like Ho'oponopono that can be used in such a profound way to heal the planet of some of our worst, I would say worst massacres and atrocities that we have committed, you know, essentially coming from our highest place. How many times have warring parties said, "Oh, God's on our side"? Well, everyone has, but to me, that's bullshit. Like, are we really connected with the highest expression that we can connect with of creation? If we're, when we're caught in a place of saying God's on our side in a battle. No, I don't think, God does not want us killing each other and warring with each other. So, again, the how powerful Ho'oponopono is in being able to heal that, to me, is incredible. And yeah, anything that you guys want to add to that before I get into, a deeper side that I've come to understand since coming to Hawaii about Ho'oponopono?
I want to hear the deeper side before I have anything to say about my own experience with Ho'oponopono. I'm much more interested in the deeper side. Maybe Stefan has something he wants to interject at this point.
I just wanted to make the point that it is purely sits in the emotional center of the body. It is not, it cannot be intellectualized. I mean, even the words themselves sit in the solar plexus and heart center of action. There is no thinking about this. If you think about it, you can't possibly produce this feeling. It has to be sensed. I mean, just the words, the words themselves. I love you. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. They don't live in the mind. They can't live in the mind. They may be communicated from the mind, but if they're not felt here, they're meaningless. So let's talk about the deeper side of it.
Yeah, so where I wanted to go, what I learned when I first learned about it 12 years ago was still in Canada, and it was from an American Indigenous woman who had spent a lot of time in Hawaii and learning it from elders. And she had, I felt her Indigenous background, gave her a propensity to really connect with the wisdom of it and share it very clearly. But the one thing that really struck me in that teaching that then has deepened since coming to Hawaii and learning a bit more of the customs and culture is that she said, in order for Ho'oponopono to be successful, or to really transmute that energy that you're intending it to transmute, it really has to come from a place of heartfelt taking of responsibility for that which you are apologizing about. And that really struck me. We can't be facetious or glib about it. If we really want to go to the deep place, we have to really be with responsibility about it. And so, and when I got to Hawaii, I started hearing this word Kuleana bantered about. And are you familiar with Kuleana?
It's brand new to me. Kuleana,
Yeah.
let's hear about it.
Yeah, it's a Hawaiian word that essentially means responsibility, but it's deeper. It also connects, with privilege. And there's a sense to it about also of ownership and sacred duty. And there's people who, or I heard it expressed was, that's my Kuleana, or that's not my Kuleana. Again, we're going back to projections, trying to project something onto another that is really ours. People responding with, that's not my Kuleana. So when I heard this, Kuleana, I thought, okay, this very much connects with that holding, that being with the responsibility of that which you're attempting to clear, and the fact that it goes deeper than just responsibility, that there's also, the privilege, to me, which is really like something that I picked up in Buddhism, from Rogers, classes, years ago, Gary, probably like 2008, was that the being gratitude for the opportunity in every single moment. To me, that privilege that comes with every single moment, and that opportunity for us to connect more deeply with each other, with where we find ourselves, with whatever we believe our source to be. So to me, that side of it is very important. And then, to me, then that really crosses over into that place of like a sacred duty space, that's also very much a part of Kuleana.
Kuleana.
That, that we have this sacred duty as beings, as conscious beings who connect with that energy of agape, to really be in that heart space, and that ability to forgive, and that knowing that it's all of our sacred duty to help clear that which we see that is not in alignment with that beautiful agape. And so, and that, that sacred duty, that ownership, is also part of it too, that we have to own that, when we are really solid in our Kuleana, then we do own that. We own what we are. We own the shit that we've caused. We own our responsibility, to transcend that and to see, how we can move through it, which to me is ultimately our goal here in a human birth, is letting go of our attachments. So to me, that again, that's something that's very profound, that's taken me, I've pondered this again since from the time that Hawaii called to me when I was 7 or 8 years old. I've also pondered, what is the point of what we're doing here? And, so to me, that's been a profound journey to come to that place of understanding that, yes, we're here to let go of our attachments, recognizing what we truly are, how we have been, our complicit in our demise at times, yet we also have the ability, to be complicit in the highest realization of what we are when we align with those higher forces. And so to me, like there's a profundity in that, but the whole Ho'oponopono brings it back to that just pure simplicity, no blind faith, as Stefan says, no intellectualizing, just bringing it truly to the heart. How do we just connect? How do we drop all that bullshit that we want to project onto it and just heal? I apologize. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Who doesn't want to, who can't react viscerally when they hear that expressed to them from someone in a place of heart-centered truth? And I'm welling up with tears as we're talking about it, because to me, like the healing power of it is so immense, and it's so simple. Yeah, I'll let you guys jump in.
Well, what I want to jump in on, and I love the exploration of the deeper side of it, and Kuleana. Hey, thanks for that, because I totally never heard that before, but I totally get what they're talking about. Kuleana is like, there is no such thing as that's not my Kuleana. With Ho'oponopono, it's all my Kuleana. You know what I'm saying? There's no division there. But what I want to point out about the efficacy of this practice, and I'm glad you spoke of taking it to the, or seeing it on a planetary level, like healing the planet. My experience has always been with very specific, personal stuff, and how instant it is. And I'm thinking of how effective it was with me and my wife. And we had Anne coming to this totally clean and cold. She's not like your typical spiritual seeker type where she's exploring all these different things. She had enough of it with our experience with Sri Chinmoy. She doesn't want to know about it. She's done with that whole thing, spiritual teachers and that whole thing. So she's coming from this clean and cold. And when I discovered this in 2015, I don't know if it was part of the finder's course or not. I don't think so. But during that time, I was taking the finder's course and exploring all these different paths and all these different practices. Somehow or other, I came across Ho'oponopono, and I said, "Bingo! This is one of the best things I had come across up until that time, and even after, even now, I'm still saying like I have to list it in like the number top three spiritual practices of all time. So where I want to plug into it is that it's so instantaneous that Ann and I would have problems and disharmonies and conflicts, and we both started doing. And I said, well, I'm doing this thing, Ho'oponopono, and she got plugged right into it, and she started doing it. So it wasn't like I'm doing it. It wasn't like just me. Oh, so I'm doing it to harmonize my thing going on with Ann, which I'm sure would have been effective. But she was doing it too. She picked right up on it. It was like bingo. She didn't need any theories, any explanations, anything. As soon as she heard it, she says, "Oh wow!" And so we will both do it, and the healing would be instantaneous. It would be like, "Whoa." I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Like, whoa, instant. It was like instant, you know, bing elixir or something. So that's why I'm so big on it. And I applied it to different areas in my own life too. But again, I hadn't thought of the larger planetary thing about healing these war zones and stuff like that. But it was so powerful and so effective. It was just like blew my mind how simple it is. You don't need to study anything. You don't need to have a teacher, giving you the inner secrets of it. It was like bingo, right on. You just get it. And the other thing I want to add on, our experience in Canada with the MDMA, I know you had the same experience. We were there. We had the same experience of unconditional love. That was it. What I got was like, God is love. God is unconditional love, not love, like that's transactional, like just pure unconditional love. And when we went around we were healing people that night. I remember Kyle probably we were healing Kyle. Anyway, so then having that experience in the background, when I came across, and because you mentioned agape or I would say unconditional love. As soon as I came across the Ho'oponopono, I said, this is unconditional love, because it doesn't matter what it doesn't involve the other person's response. It's all unconditional. And you don't even have to do it. The other person, let's say if you're working with a one-on-one, you're trying to align with, the other person doesn't even have to know you're doing it. It doesn't involve any other. So again, this is where the kind of non-dual idea comes in. There is no other. There is no other. It's all your own shit, and that's where the Kuleana comes in. Yeah, I'm taking responsibility for not only my shit, but his shit and her shit and everybody's shit, because there's no other. So that's why it's so beautiful. Yeah, I love Ho'oponopono. I'm so glad I'm reconnecting with it now, and like you, I'm getting the energy from it. It's like, because I don't not like I do it all the time. It's just comes up from time to time, but it's like what energy there is around this practice. It's just amazing.
When you were talking about it, three things came into feeling, surrender, humility, and as Gary said, the final one, unconditional love. Now, you can't, again, I'm going to say this, I know people are probably getting tired of listening to me say this, you cannot intellectualize these things. They have to be felt. Because when you said about, not somebody saying, I'm not feeling it, that whole expression of I'm not feeling it is exactly that. It's not intellectualizing it. It's not feeling it. It's so deep. And that part of the spirit body is not appreciated by a lot of people. But in order to get there, in its purest sense, you have to surrender. And I know surrender is a bad word to a lot of people, but when you surrender, you allow yourself to go there without any roadblocks. Then you fall into a state of humility where you understand that there's something bigger than you, that you are a part of this bigness, that you are not the golden child, that you are just that one drop in that big ocean. And once you get there, for me, because I did have this experience briefly, I touched on unconditional love, which was so, I can't even, there are no words for it. Okay. It's a place where you actually do it, unfold inside yourself. Now, through marriage and relationships, I've experienced human love, but there was nothing that could touch on to this taste of unconditional love, where everything, like Gary said, everything is just perfect. And in that perfection, and that's why that whole concept of God and love is so important, and shouldn't be misconstrued thinking what love is from the human standpoint, because it's so much bigger. But it does take surrender, and it does take humility to get to that space. You know, we're pretty messed up anyway, you know, in trying to figure out what the bottom line is here. You know, we keep talking about it and talking about it, and you know, it's like until you're blue in the face. But you know, until you have the experience, it's just, it doesn't matter. You go on your life and never have it happen to you, and you know, maybe it won't happen. I don't know, but you know what? It happened to me, and I'm so grateful to the universe that somehow, some way, I was able to touch on it. And I have to say, if it wasn't for my experience with Sri Chinmoy, I'm not sure I would have gotten to it, because the switch was turned on there. So bless you, Guru, for that. The rest of whatever you did, I guess, you know, the universe will work it out for you.
Well, you know what? We should practice Ho'oponopono on our former guru, who pulled some, you know, pretty shifty, nasty stuff on a lot of people. But you know, but this is good, because rather than, and I know there's still some resentment going on in some quarters and some people with some people. I think it's good to get clear and to forgive him too, because. Was he in charge of anything? I don't know. I mean, you know, what I'm saying is we could take Ho'oponopono into any situation, and if there's any, and I don't have anything going on with the guru. I kind of went through my whole anger phase, you know, years and years ago. Worked through that, but you know, that would be the perfect example. If anybody has any issues with the guru, for whatever he, you know, may have done with them, to them, or at them, or whatever, Ho'oponopono I'm 100% sure would resolve those issues very quickly.
Well, what I'd like to do is I'm going to put an image of the guru into this podcast, and we're going to take a moment of Ho'oponopono silence to give this love back to him, and let's just do it.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll be happy to do it. And I hope others, especially, you know, those who from our old association back in the 1970s and 80s and beyond, still have some issues around that whole thing, can maybe employ this. We'll go over the steps to resolve their issues with him or with anybody in their lives. Anybody, right? I'm sorry. Take responsibility. I let Kuleana. I'm responsible. I'm not going to blame the guru. Let's say I'm responsible. I joined. I was a willing, you know, and I got a lot. Just like Stefan said, that was those days that planted the whole seed of spirituality that has blossomed, as far as I'm concerned, blossomed. You know, so I'm grateful for that. So I'm sorry. Forgive me. You know, whatever role I've had in that, because it takes two to tango, don't forget. I love you unconditionally, not depending on anything coming from your way. And thank you for being part of my whole process. Look, hey, I'm happy where I am now. If I didn't have all whatever, you know, took place in the past, I wouldn't be here. Just like Stephen said, if he didn't have that, maybe he never would have came to that experience or realization of unconditional love. So, hey, it's all good. Ho'oponopono. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
So we're going to do it right now, and I'm just going to let the people who are listening on audio version of this podcast, there will be some music underneath of this. Just take a moment to offer your ho'oponopono to those that you want to give this offering to, those that may have been, who have wronged you, that you'd like to offer your love back to. And we'll do that. And let's just take this moment to give the universe up our love. Okay, so I think that was kind of nice.
I think that's great,
think-
and I think it's a great
so
place to
too.
end. Unless you guys have more, I think that's a great place to end on a healing note, on a personal level, on a planetary level, on a universal level. I think that was great. I want to thank Todd for bringing in that deeper side, because I never thought about the deeper side. Yeah, it's like the whole universe, as opposed to just like me and my little relationships. That was really great. Todd, do you have any closing remarks, or do we have other topics? I mean, I feel like I'm cool.
I think that that healing is exactly what we've been summoned together to offer today as a beautiful culmination of our time together. So I could always with especially with you two guys, I could always go on about spiritual things, and there's many things that we just in that last bit that I could go on about. I think this is a nice place to complete, and I want to it's a great reminder for me, because I can often go big picture, and that is a gift. I'm grateful of it, but as with every gift, it's a blessing and a curse. For me, coming back to what are the things that I can use Ho'opono for, just in my daily moment to moment existence, to come back to that place of agape. So that was something that is, as you were both talking, Gary, just about how you and Anne have really used it in a healing space. And I think in relationships, particularly the relationships with our beloveds, we're as Ramdas says, we can be like sandpaper to each other, just working off those rough points. So it's a great reminder to do that. And Stefan, how you brought it together with the surrender, the humility, and the connection to unconditional love, those not being anything we can intellectualize, those being the feeling space that really brought it together in a nice way for me that I hadn't considered before. So thank you both for that, and thank you for the time today. Love connecting with you guys, and really special to be able to connect from the island of Kauai, and the sleeping giant in the background there, reminding us all to connect with the giant within. What is our highest place that we can connect with?
Well, Todd, we think of you as family now. You really have become close in our heart. And I want to thank you again for showing up. And we're going to do this more. I mean, this was a wonderful conversation, and we'll have other things to talk about. So, Todd, enjoy your stay in Hawaii. And until next time.